Well, hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. My name is Susan Moore. I'm the Community Engagement Manager here at IIBA. And we're going to be talking about how to hire top business analysis talent. And we're so excited that you've joined us. So for members, we're extra excited that you've joined us for this. And hello to everyone else that found us. This is going to be a fantastic topic because we have got folks from the recruiting space who are going to answer your questions. And I am going to introduce them in just a moment. Let me do a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. You see above me, here it is, above me over here, there's a QR code. This will take you to more information about IIBA membership. So we have lots of fantastic benefits, resources, and tools for business analysis professionals, including career resources. We also do member exclusive webinars. We've got online libraries. We've got lots of benefits. So click that QR code and you can find out more about that. Just kind of some Zoom housekeeping. So I am recording today's session. Within 24 hours, you will receive an email. It's an automated email from Zoom. You'll get a link to the recording. You'll also get the slide deck for today. And for members, we're going to tell you a little bit about some exclusive stuff that you're going to get when we get to the end of the presentation. Feel free to chat with each other in chat. That's what that's for. If you've got questions, you can put that into the Q&A box. Remember to upvote if you see a question there that you've got. And hey, if you are hearing something that you like, let's see, I don't know. I don't know if we've got our emojis turned on for this one, but we always, you can put that in chat. Okie doke. So let me do some quick introductions of our speakers today. So first we have got Cate Murray. She's director of the PMO solution. She leads the PMO and business operations practice in addition to being the solution leader for their project management as a service solution. She's a frequent speaker at PMI events. She also speaks at different professional development days and also Project Summit Business Analyst World. We've got Claire Mathews here. She is an Ohio State University grad. So if we've got any other Buckeyes, give her a big hello. She's the lead account executive, but she started out as a technical recruiter. So we're going to lean into her experience there today. And she's done a lot in both the project management and business analysis space, helping to support her clients on things like job descriptions and interviewing and vetting of clients. So really important. And then finally, we have got Patrick McCrary. He is currently an executive delivery manager for 6 offices, and he also started as a technical recruiter. He knows a lot about the best practices for finding IT resources, and he has placed over 1,000 contractors over the last 10 years in PMO, business analysis and application development. So really that full software experience. Okie doke. So with those introductions, well, let's get things started. So we've also got Sema, that's the other IIBA webinar out there. So Sema Sali, she is from our product marketing team. Alrighty, Sema, I think we are ready to go. Cate, I'm going to hand it to you.
Yeah, that'd be great. And if we could flip to the job seeker statistics slide, that'd be fantastic. And thank you everyone for joining us today. We really appreciate it. This is a topic we love talking about. We're very passionate about, so really appreciate you joining and hopefully you have some good takeaways from our conversation today. So I think we are all very well aware of how competitive the job market is right now and how many companies are struggling with attracting and hiring top talent. It's conversations I know I have with hiring managers on a regular basis. And before we get into some strategies of how to combat this, I'd like to share some of these job seeker statistics just so you can get an idea of how competitive things really are. So the first one, 70% of job seekers are invisible online, meaning that they do not have a resume posted. And that's a huge population of individuals that you want to be able to tap into if you are looking for talent right now. Another 85 to 95% of candidates who are qualified don't apply for the role simply because it doesn't appeal to them. And a lot of that comes back to a quality job description. And we're going to cover that quite a bit today. Active job seekers spend 3 hours a week searching online, and 78% of them use social media during that process. 73% of candidates are passively looking. Again, they might not have their resume posted. They most likely don't. But if there was something really intriguing out there, they might be inclined to submit their resume to it. And then I think everybody is also aware of the unemployment rate right now. It's very low. And within tech, and that's the industry that we are in tech services, the average professional has 3 offers within 5 days. So you can get an idea. They're getting a lot of, there's a lot of competition out there, and you really have to kick it up a notch if you want to attract that top talent. And I did, for this group, I wanted to share some of our internal business analysis statistics, because I think they really are quite amazing. Just from 2020 to 2021, we saw a 30.23% increase in the number of business analysis openings. And we are on track this year to have even more than that. So there are a lot of positions out there. Again, it's very competitive, but you want to make sure that you're attracting that top talent. So we can get into the next conversation. If you don't mind changing the slide, that'd be great. So these are really the top reasons managers lose the best candidates. And we put this list together really based on our conversations and experiences of what's going on in the marketplace today. So I'm going to briefly cover each of these, and then I'll turn it over to Claire and Pat to add their specific experience with this. But first and foremost, below market pay. So I think a lot of people, clients, hiring managers, assume that all candidates are money motivated. And yes, everybody wants to make money. We need money to live. But, I think really what I'm trying to get across here is, for the role that you are trying to hire, are you always under what the market is paying for that role? And, there are always going to be companies that are going to pay excessively more, and potentially ones that are going to pay less. But are you with the majority of the population when it comes to what the target salary is? If you're consistently $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 under what that is, that's going to be a problem. So that's something where if you are having people decline offer after offer because of salary, that's something you need to do a little bit of research on and kind of, ask your sources out there. Is it because just of pay? What else is going on here? What are clients paying for this role? What other flexibility is there? A lengthy interview process. Gosh, this is a conversation I have with hiring managers on a regular basis. So when I have a customer tells me, oh, we do 3 or 5 interviews, I stop them right there and I say, listen, I got to tell you, especially in today's market, the maximum interviews you can have or interview steps is really 2. And, again, if you need to have 3 steps to your interview process, you can combine it into 1 day or 2 day, so it's back to back to back. It is just really tough if you have a long drawn out process. You're going to lose folks. It's just people are moving very quickly these days. Poor interview process. So this could be a lot of things. It could be rigorous, right? They're feeling like they're grilled. They could be over-interviewed for the role, asked extremely difficult questions when really the focus is a traditional business analyst role. I got feedback yesterday from a coworker of mine that I have to share. I was like, this is so timely. This is a direct quote from a candidate that interviewed yesterday for a role. And I just want everybody to hear this because this is one of those lessons learned, what we do not want to do. So this is an exact quote. The interview was terrible. It consisted of question after question for 57 minutes. Then they wanted to continue to pass the time with more questions. It left me 2 minutes to ask a question or 2. It was not conversational at all. It was like an interrogation. They did not give off a welcoming vibe. It was very impersonal. They didn't even have the decency of turning on their camera for the interview. So again, that is one of the things that you want to avoid. I always encourage managers, really audit your interview process. Who's doing the interview for you? What is the overall candidate experience? And try to get feedback on that if you can. Again, the not sold. what we're trying to get across there is other offers are more appealing. They don't understand what the perks are of the training potential, the growth potential, potentially the tech landscape. Maybe you're waterfall right now, but you really are, bought in. Customers, or leadership wants to do an agile transformation. That's something that we have to let folks know. Inaccurate, incomplete job details. Again, we'll talk a lot about this, but the description isn't accurate. It's a canned job description. They don't actually get to meet or talk to people doing this job. People want to know what they're doing every day and what their key responsibilities are. Unrealistic requirements list. Again, I think a lot of this comes back to a lot of hiring managers don't have training on how to write proper job descriptions. So they either pull a job description, they reuse it, they put everything under the sun that they want on the job description. So that's one thing we have to be really careful of. Of course, counter offers, more appealing offers with flexibilities. I know the whole on-site remote is a really hot topic right now, but are there just generally better benefits and more flexibility that they're getting at another customer? And then again, the too many cooks issue. This can come down to have to go through multiple layers of approval for the role, which of course lengthens that timeline, and that is an acceptance killer. So again, really wanted to share, these are the top things that we are seeing happening in the marketplace right now when it comes to why folks are losing top talent.
Kate, that was such a great overview. I think many are probably listening to what you shared, and the good news is they have the takeaway of most of these are within their control, sans below market value pay, right? So I think a lot of people are in a position where executives or HR are setting a salary standard that is being pushed down to them to try to adhere to. So I would say if that's a condition that you're facing, if you're able to take on a resource that's maybe a little lesser qualified, that you can make it a stretch growth opportunity for them, or if you're in an interview process and you knew you can't sacrifice on some of the qualifications or expectations for the role, what other intangibles could you sell in terms of culture, team, bonus incentives, future growth, opportunities for them, within the organization to maybe longer term make that a better fit for them? Because to Kate's point, not everybody is fully motivated on money. It is a very important part of the process, but I've had a number of candidates tell me that, in an interview, somebody just really impressed them, or the direction of the organization or their market position was the standout, and it was a bigger attractor to them than, the few $1,000s that might have been off in, getting them commensurate with the market. It very much is an employee's market right now. So it is important, right, that the interview process is quick and cohesive, and that we're able to ensure that they get regular updates and feedback. I think a lot of times an interview will occur and it will be a really good interview, but there's a delay in getting that feedback back to the resource. So in the meantime, they've maybe thought the opportunity is lost. They're looking for other things. And then by the time they circle back, unfortunately, the candidate's no longer available. So I think these are all really good takeaways and things, again, that for the most part are within our control. But I do think that there are things that you could also contribute, again, in that market pay bucket that might help still attract the right talent, even if you're in a constraint that you can't control.
And I think Claire brings up a really good point, and something that I've heard just talking with my recruiters and being a recruiter once before is, though you may not mean it, sometimes you come across as you lose that credibility. They feel like maybe you don't have a good process. If it's taking you 5 steps to really figure out if I'm the right candidate, is that an environment that I really want to be a part of? Like, do I want to work here? Is this going to be an issue when I'm on site and there are a lot of production things going on? Like, do I want to be a part of that? So buttoning that up and really understanding what you want and not being afraid to put all of your cards on the table. Sometimes I've found managers they try to play hard to get it. They want to keep the ball in their court. And then that's how you find that there are 3-step interview process and there are 4. And unfortunately, during a remote environment, you saw on the last slide that, candidates have multiple offers within 5 days, but most people that we're talking to these days already have an offer in hand, but there was something about your company that intrigued them and they want to work there. So they're willing to, put that aside and see if they really want to move this forward, right? And I think the only other thing that I want to touch on is just the incomplete job details. I've told many managers this before, but when you're creating a job description, too many times we've seen that managers will just give us some job description off the website and say, hey, we're just looking for a business analyst. This is what we need. But after we talk to them, we need something to really reel them in and sell them on why they should work for this client. And I'll give you this example. It's pretty comical, but it's so perfect for this. Is think about a 5-star restaurant that you've been to, right? Like you see that steak on that menu. There's no picture of that steak, but it sounds really, really good by what you're reading. And then when you actually get that steak and it looks like exactly what you thought it was going to look like, you're happy and you come back to that restaurant again, right? So when you're thinking about the job descriptions that you're building out, you want that to be that final product that says, yes, I want to work here. This separates this position from other positions, because that's what we're going to use to kind of reel people in and really get them excited about working for your company and really building it forward.
Love that, Pat. And we included a process, QA on here. If you are someone or your organization is struggling with, folks are just not accepting your offers, really take the time to do an audit with your team and with HR, whoever, on, what's going on, how many steps, how long is it in between it? What is the timeline from when we, a candidate submits their resume or we receive their information to when we're making an offer? And is there a way that we can condense that, and who do we actually need involved in that process? That's a great step to take if you are struggling with this piece.
The other piece is consistency. So if you do have multiple people participating, it's sometimes tough to evaluate because you have different experiences isolated to different people. So if you want multiple people to be involved, it's always a best practice to ensure that maybe the same set of questioning is established, so you have some way to measure each candidate against the next.
Mm-hmm. Perfect.
All right. So we're ready to move to the next slide. And by the way, I feel like you have seen my entire interviewing history with those top reasons that people lose candidates. I have experienced some of those, so I know that's a real thing. So, all right.
Absolutely. So this is, we don't want to spend a ton of time here, although this is a very important slide. So this is really meant to be a guide, and we have a resource here which will be available for you that takes you from beginning to end of this entire process in very extreme detail. So, again, don't think that is necessarily the avenue to talk about that here. What I want to pull out, we're each going to pull out, are a couple of pieces that we think are really important. Now, for me, I oversee our PMO and business operations area, which is, all things project and program management, but also business and process analysis. So I look at a lot of business analysis job descriptions on a weekly basis, talk to those hiring business analysts. And one thing that, I see quite consistently is that the skill set and what the expectations are of that individual are not always realistic. And what I mean by that is I'll talk to a customer like, well, I need a mid to senior level business analyst. And I'm like, okay, great. What kind of documentation are they producing? Who are their stakeholders? They're like, well, then I also need them to do data analysis. Okay, great. Are we talking simple SQL queries? Are they creating a dashboard? Well, no, I need them to have more advanced skills. Okay. Well, I also need them to step in and be a product owner occasionally because I've got this going on. And it's like, okay, well, that's 3 roles in one now. So what are we actually looking for here? So, and I know the nice thing about the business analysis competency is it does have so much crossover into other fields. And there's a lot of paths that you can take. But for hiring managers, it's really focusing on what is the majority, the 60%, 70% that individual is going to need to do on a daily basis. Yes, a lot of business analysts do have data analysis skills, and that's amazing. But data analyst is technically a separate skill set, right? So, what is it that you need? And let's focus on that piece, and everything else is a plus. So that's something I really have to educate hiring managers on is, yes, we all want people that can do 7 jobs in one, but what is the task at hand and what do we really need? And then let's make sure that we're relaying that so it is realistic and folks are going to be encouraged to apply to that job description.
Something that really stood out to me on this slide is qualify while delivering a positive interview experience. So if you see that on the right side of the graph here, my best customers understand that an interview should be as much an opportunity for them to qualify and interview the resource as it is for the resource to interview the customer. To have that reciprocation in the interview so they can understand fully what the expectations are. Cate, your example that you shared in that quote, the word interrogation jumped out to me immediately because a lot of times, candidates leave an interview feeling like it was rapid fire, Q&A, but they didn't really ever have that opportunity at the end of the interview to talk through, the questions that they might have had, or, other things that are important to them about the job beyond just day-to-day responsibilities. Again, we talked about culture and market position and some of the other things around the company. So I just think it's really important that that is a two-way street, and that candidates, have a collaboration with you. It's okay to ask technical or defining questions. We definitely want to get to the root of the mechanics of their trade. But at the end of the day, just making sure that they leave that with a warm impression and have the opportunity to share in that dialogue is tremendously helpful.
I think that's a great point. And I also want to add on the last box on here, further selling the role of the team and the culture. Think about it. 9 out of 10 times, any BA or business analyst that you talk to probably can do the job, and you probably offered those candidates a job and then they don't accept. And it's like, what in the world happened? This was a perfect interview. And when we go back and talk to these candidates, what we find is that, well, I don't know if I'll fit that culture. I don't know if I like the team. They didn't really tell me about it. So when you think about that, long gone are the days where people just want to do a job, right? Like, we can't just talk about the technical specs and do you have agile? Like, can you implement this? Most people that we talk to, they want to be a change agent. They want to make an impact. They want to know that what they're bringing to the table is going to contribute to something larger. And that's what's going to really attract people in and get them really excited about not only coming in and working for you, but giving it 100% every single day. Because, those that are coming in and just doing a job, while they can do the job with their eyes closed, they're probably doing something else and trying to find another job that really aligns with what their culture is and what they want to be a part of. So don't be afraid to, share your pain points, share your values, share some of the areas that you're struggling in, and then allow that resource to open up and share what they can bring to the table to really help you get to the next level. So something to really think about.
As you guys are talking about this, I am realizing how important that relationship is between the recruiter and that hiring manager. And so, it's not just a hiring manager, telling you a job requisition they're trying to fill, but there really is a relationship that you're building, and you are giving them good advice. So maybe the other thing to let our hiring managers know is, listen, listen to that advice, build a good relationship with your recruiter, because they are your eyes and ears for the candidates and for that particular skill set you're looking for. Yep. All right. I think we're ready for the next slide, Sema.
I think we're ready to move on to the 10 Ps. So again, I'll give a quick overview of what all these are, because I know there's a lot of them. And then we'll talk a little bit about what this means for you when it comes to hiring talent. So when we look at this model, this is really about how are you communicating these, not only in your job description, that's the first place you want to include it, but also throughout your hiring process. And these are the things that candidates typically care about. So first and foremost, the purpose, right? That's why is this role open? Are you trying to backfill somebody? Is this a new team, a new program, something exciting, right? Really, again, why is this position available? Project, so think of things like the size, the scale, the scope. Again, you can relate that back to the purpose. Potential, this is a big one, especially for some of the younger generations. Learning and growth, what are the opportunities, not only for this team, for this role, but within the organization, and if you're a leader or a hiring manager that has had really good success stories of folks in your team moving upwards and onwards, those are things you want to share. That's what folks are interested in, right? Place. So when we talk about place, we mean, what is their place within the organization? And I really like to think of that macro to micro, right? So like the company's here, we're here, what's in between, right? What is that org structure? How do we fit in? What is my place? The people, again, so important. Obviously, Pat talked about this too. Folks really want, especially nowadays, they want to work with a team that they like and they enjoy in a positive, uplifting culture. I mean, ultimately, that's what it comes down to. I've had candidates accept much less because they were like, wow, this team seems amazing. This culture spot on. I know I'm going to love it here. We spend a lot of our time at work. We want to be happy. We want to enjoy what we're doing. So again, make sure that you're including some of your team dynamics, your team size. I love when hiring managers are like, honestly, my team is amazing, but we work hard, and like, again, they're honest about it, but it's like we support each other, we're there for each other, but like we need people that can swim, right? They're not going to sink, they're not going to be scared to get in here, and that might not be the environment for you, and that's okay, but that's the kind of stuff that you want to be sharing with candidates. Priorities. What are the top 2 to 3 things you want somebody to come in and accomplish? I love that question. I actually encourage candidates that are interviewing to ask that on their interviews, but that's something as a hiring manager you can incorporate as well. Like, these are the milestones, these are the deliverables, like these are the things that I need this person to accomplish in the first 3 months, 6 months, a year, whatever the duration is, because that gives them insight into like, okay, this is what I'm going to be working towards. Of course, perks. There's a ton of things that could fall under that category, but if you do have any really cool perks, flexibility, that's the kind of information you want to be including here. Pay, right? What else beyond the base salary? Are there bonuses? Do you have profit sharing, and HSA? Do you have other compensation aspects that are really neat? Team bonuses, things like that, that would be considered in that overall compensation package. Problems, I love this one. What business problems are they solving? Or what has the team struggled with before? And then pain points. I think maybe it was Pat that mentioned this before, or I don't remember if it was Pat or Claire, but really this is like, what's the ugly? Like there's always an ugly in every role. So, what can they anticipate working with? Is there potentially a set of really difficult stakeholders that it's going to take a while to break them down, but, ultimately that's what's going to be needed for success in this role. So, this is the model that we'd like to talk to customers about. And again, what I would think about from your perspective is, first of all, what is the P that you communicate most effectively? And you're like, we do a really great job of that. And then what's the one that you're like, wow, we do not communicate that at all? And that's what I would focus on incorporating, again, into your job descriptions and into your overall hiring process.
Kate, just to elaborate on priorities quickly, I know you mentioned where are we headed, right? But I also think it's really important on elaborating on how you measure success. So not just that we checked the box and accomplished it, but what's going to make me a standout performer? What is going to, help me achieve my future goals and ensure that the success of these projects? So I think when you can talk to folks about how you measure success, it helps them understand tangibly what they're going to be responsible for, and help them determine as well if they think that they're the right fit for those, projects and goals.
A good point. One thing I want to mention here, maybe except for pay, I talked about culture on the last slide, but I think you first have to determine, does your current team, are they aware of all of these P's on this map, right? Can they communicate that same vision? And also when you're communicating this with potential candidates to work for, you have to understand that not only is it helping you to sell the opportunity that you have, but you're also, trying to reel them in away from some of the other big box opportunities out there. Again, we're in a remote environment, so you're no longer competing with those in your backyard. You're competing with the Googles, the Amazons, the Facebook, some of these big market items. And the name itself is going to bring candidates and attract them. So what can you do when it comes to these P's to really reel people in and get them really excited about it?
All right. Yep. Let's talk about building connections, which really I think is what you're trying to do with those 10 P's.
Yes, absolutely. So, I think from a hiring manager's perspective, and Claire alluded to this a little bit earlier, it really is all about the candidate experience and creating a memorable experience with them from day one, from the moment that they interact with your organization to the time that they get hired and onboarded. So I always want to be thinking about it from that lens of the candidate. So what are you doing to establish that rapport and build that connection? I think we talked about some of the don'ts. A lot of the interviews that are taking place right now are happening over video, and that's great. Make sure that you're on video. We instruct our candidates, when they're interviewing, make sure that you're dressed professionally. Even if you're wearing sweatpants on the bottom, that is fine. But make sure you're dressed professionally. They can see you. The background's nice. There's not a lot of crazy noise going on. I think the same goes for the hiring team. I find it really frustrating when the hiring team is off camera, when you can tell that they're not engaged, they're not listening, they're not paying attention. That's really frustrating for a candidate. So again, that's something you really want to pay attention to. I don't know if anybody on the call has read The Energy Bus. very much recommend it. Super easy read, but there's a 2-minute rule. And really what the idea is, you can influence the energy of a conversation. And in this instance, what we're talking about of an interview within 2 minutes. Think about any time that you have interviewed. Most people are nervous when they go to an interview. I don't care who you are. The majority of people find some anxiety when it comes to interviewing. So is there a way that you can incorporate that? Like, oh, I saw that you're a member of IIBA. Cool. Did you go to that webinar? It was awesome. Or, oh, wow, I saw you went to so-and-so university. That's great. My son went there. Neat. Anything like that can start it off really just to take the pressure off the interview. And hopefully that will give the candidate the opportunity to show them their true self because they've relaxed a couple notches. So I really always try to incorporate that, into interviews, and really try to get away from that boom, 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 boom drilling, because that just makes for a poor candidate interview experience.
Anyone wanted to add anything here? By the way, I really like that we are talking about building relationships here, even if that relationship with that candidate might be just for the length of the interview process. But I think that that's so important. That's the differentiator.
Yes.
I think in hiring as a candidate, when I feel like I have connected with that interviewer and the organization, I am more likely to make a decision to work there, as opposed to feeling like I'm really just a checkbox. Okay, did we interview Susan? Yes, moving on. This is really, I think, what makes the difference.
Yeah, and you know what people say, they don't remember what you said, they remember how you make them feel. And I think this is really, really important, especially in this virtual environment. We have to make people feel welcomed and excited. If you're not excited for the role, why would you expect somebody interviewing for it to be? I always find that so on when a hiring manager's on the interview and there's like, oh yeah, this is so-and-so's have blah. And it's like, we have to show excitement for these positions in order to get candidates excited about it. So, just be thinking about that. And again, this is a great opportunity to audit your process, audit your interviewing. And you might have some harsh realities that you'll need to face, but this will lead you to getting access to that better talent.
Yeah. And hey, I just wanted to let our members know the Energy Bus is in our online library. I'm actually going to drop a link to it. Yeah, I'm going to drop a link to it in the chat. We have it both as a book and as an audio book. So, if you're headed to the beach later this week, there you go. I've got your reading already.
You could probably read it within an hour. It's a quick one. It's really good though.
Yeah. All right. We ready to move on? So next we're going to talk about those the 80-20 rule. I found this one really interesting, Kate. So
Yes, and Claire alluded to this a little bit earlier too. Again, I think most folks are turned off from job descriptions because there is so much on the requirements list. And from our perspective, we tell candidates, hey, if you meet 80%, heck, if you meet 70% of the requirements, apply for the role. But the same thing goes from hiring manager perspective. There is no perfect candidate. I don't know that we want a perfect candidate. I personally would like the opportunity to hire somebody that has the ability to learn new things and evolve and grow. And I always talk to hiring managers about, okay, what are the must-haves? We know you need core business analysis skills, but ultimately, a lot of that can be taught. We can teach people how to write great user stories and write amazing epics, but we can't teach people how to communicate. We can't teach them to be a nice person and, work well with others. Those are some of those things that are a little bit harder. So a lot of times you do have to hire for personality, for culture, for communication style. And then think about, are there things that I could train or my team could train on so we can get that person to that next level? And once you do this, you have the ability to tap into a whole nother candidate pool. I think a lot of times people don't realize the power behind upskilling and reskilling individuals, because not only does that give the person the opportunity to learn something new and rise to the challenge and grow their career, but it also gives you the opportunity for a broader pool of candidates. So I would highly recommend this. Again, review your job descriptions, look at what do we have on the requirements list? Is there anything that we could potentially move to the pluses? And then when we find somebody really great, are we willing to take a chance on them? I saw this on LinkedIn yesterday. I feel like everything I've seen this week has been very relevant for this webinar, but somebody posted this and it was a job description. A recruiter shared a job description with this lady on LinkedIn. And at the bottom of the job descriptions, this is what the wording was. And I thought this was so powerful. It said, don't meet every single requirement. Studies have shown that women and people of color are less likely to apply to jobs unless they meet every single qualification. At our company, we are dedicated to building a diverse, inclusive, and authentic workplace. So if you're excited about this role, but your past experience doesn't align perfectly with every qualification in the job description, we encourage you to apply anyways. You might just be the right candidate for this or other roles. I love that. I thought that was so powerful. And wow, how amazing it would be if all organizations did that. And again, that kind of gets folks out of their imposter syndrome mentality and gets you a broader pool of resources.
Yeah, Kate, that was powerful. We've all seen countless, and I mean countless LinkedIn stories where someone said that a manager took a chance on them. Maybe they couldn't do the job, but they got in and they've been there 15 years now. I mean, this couldn't be any more true. Even when, my recruiters and myself are sitting down on the phone and talking with you about the skills that we need, I'm then going back and telling my team, like, don't go find the Michael Jordan, because those resources, their resumes are probably not posted. They're probably just lurking and seeing what's out there, but they don't want those phone calls. So we're looking for someone that can do the job and do it the right way. And it doesn't mean that you should just take chances on people, but if you truly believe that they have the skills and the aptitude to do it, trust the resources around you and trust that we have the skills and the tools needed to really, bring them up to speed, whether it's, a communication thing or, being able to do something else. Just be able to trust that. And then along with the trust, I mean, it's been huge for me, but just that whole power of delegation. I mean, Susan mentioned it, just the relationship you have with your recruiters and your managers. We take that time before we actually go and find the resources for you to really understand the role and understand what you're looking for. So trusting us to go find that great resource for you and knowing that they're going to be able to contribute to your team and what you're trying to build, it really goes a long way.
Yeah, we all have mentors, coaches, managers that took a chance on us, right? And the level of embedded loyalty that comes from people that are willing to, interview or hire on potential, I think is very powerful.
Mm-hmm. And also, again, I think a lot of it comes down to, even if they aren't the perfect candidate, what else can you, again, is there a training path for them? Are there other really neat things? Could they obtain a certification? Things like that. Those are the kind of items that you have to be thinking about, especially in this marketplace.
And I think the only thing I'll add there is, if you're bringing someone on to join a team, is there someone else on that team that fits the 20% that this candidate is lacking, right? Like, that's how you grow an organization and really build. You don't need someone to do everything, but are they really strong where someone else is weak? And then you ultimately see that growth and you see that everyone is really happy with what they're doing and where they are.
I really like that point in particular, Pat, because I think that's how you build team spirit, is that, not everybody is a 100% rock star in every piece that they do. But when you understand that you're a team who has a certain set of strengths and weaknesses, and that you've got somebody that can prop you up where you may not be, strong yet, I think it helps to build team spirit. But I also think it provides opportunities to cross-train, to learn, to work with somebody who can do it. And I think, much of my business analysis career, I just had to learn it on the job. So I think that can be really powerful when you have people that kind of offset each other. So it's a really great point. So at this point, I think we're technically at the end of the prepared piece of this. We'll take some questions, and Sema, if you want, we can stop sharing the screen and I'll go through this a little bit later. Just to wrap things up at the end. But as you guys can imagine, we have tons of questions from this group. And let's see, what is the top question? Okay, so just a reminder, so if you've got a question, drop it in that Q&A box. If you see a question there that you have, give it an upvote. That helps me to prioritize these questions. Okay, this one, we didn't cover it yet, but Bill wants to know, is work from home 100% starting to become a leading factor? So is that something that hiring managers need to be thinking about as they are putting together their requisitions?
Yes. Is all
okay,
I will say.
done.
So,
next question.
It's really interesting. The dynamic has shifted in the last 6 months, and I think Claire and Pat can talk specifically about their marketplaces too. But Nate, across North America, what I've seen is we do have customers that are starting to require folks to come back on site. And again, it's usually some type of hybrid, but they still need to be in the area so they can be on site 2 to 3 days a week. And it has really impacted their hiring and their ability to hire talent. So if you have the ability to do remote, you need to advertise that. Absolutely. Now folks are looking for that. I think there are individuals that want to be part of an office and want to go into an office. There will always be those. But now that a lot of us have had more flexibility over the last 2+ years, it's become a leading indicator and also an overall in happiness and wellness.
I do agree that the majority, sorry, Patrick, of candidates do want to be remote, but I do think it presents an interesting conversation around culture and training and development. So both of those are much more difficult to accomplish in a remote and virtual environment. So if you are able to be flexible to accommodate remote employees, it does certainly extend the candidate pool, but you do need to be mindful of then once you have them in a remote capacity, how are you solving for culture, training, and development?
Mm-hmm.
I think the key word that Cate mentioned is flexibility. You may be in an environment where your business will not allow you to be fully remote, though remote is king, but it is just having that flexibility, right? Like you have to ask yourself, are you turning down a candidate because he can't come on site, but has everything you're looking for? Like, can you meet somewhere in the middle? Like that's going to show humility on your end. It's going to show more about your team culture. If maybe it's 3 days in the office, if you can condense it to 1 day a week, or hey, if you can stay near a major airport and commit to flying down once a month, like can you show that flexibility, you'll get that buy-in, because there are some companies where it's just nothing we can do about it. But if you can and is willing and you can be remote, 1000% you'll increase your candidate pool.
So conversely, does that mean that job postings where it's 100% in the office, are you seeing that as a deal breaker these days? Or are they still pulling in candidates?
Yes, I got to be honest, I am. But again, I want to say that that caveat, there are people out there that want to be. I have a girlfriend who left jobs for a fully remote job and was like, I am miserable. I realize I have to be in an office full time. Like it's just my personality. I need it. And so she has since changed jobs and is in an opportunity where she's in the office full time. So there is that out there. But again, I think to Pat's point, it's so much about flexibility. Like it's just, you're not going to be able to get the top folks if you require 100% on site. I mean, I think about if I went into an office, I would have 2 hours a day of commuting, which I think is probably common for a lot of us. That's a lot of chunk of time. So, it just, again, I think there has to be some give and take there.
Right.
Yeah, it's a wild time. It's a candidate's market now, where before like client had all control, but it's a candidate's market. So do what makes sense for them to find the best talent.
Yeah, I think that's really what I am hearing, even from just the way that you guys are talking about the process, is that it has shifted now. So the stale way that you used to, you have 5 interviews, 2 hours a piece. By the way, I've been through that interview process, right? And it was just what you had to do to get the job. That reality just doesn't exist anymore. So. Okay, so the next question here, and I think we've got a couple of questions around this, and it is specifically around job descriptions for different levels of business analysis professionals. So this is from Carolina. How can we define or manage the differences between senior, full, and junior? So specifically, how would those job postings, how would they look different? I think is what she's asking.
Well, I think first and foremost, years of experience. So for me, a junior candidate, 0 to 2, 1 to 3, mids, 3 to 5, seniors, 5 to 7, and then a lead BA is maybe 7+, 7 to 10+, generally speaking, right? I think there's always exceptions to the rule. But then it's also, what are they responsible for? Typically a junior BA is going to be responsible for a smaller portfolio of things. Like a lead BA would be responsible for coaching and managing and mentoring BAs. So, I think it's that think about that breakdown of work for those roles. What are their responsibilities? What percentages are they doing each of those, the things that they're doing on a daily basis. But again, I think it really comes down to what are your expectations. And if you don't have a job matrix, which is something I found a lot of our clients don't, that's really something you should build out. So for each of these roles, what are the responsibilities? What are the tools? What are the KPIs or the metrics, the expectations? What are the deliverables for each of those? And then you can kind of compare and contrast against that.
Did you guys want to offer anything else on that one?
I think she really hit on it. Yeah.
I did have one thought, was that, sometimes I know that in business analysis positions, they like to drop in certifications or, keywords from things like, the Babcock Guide. If you're looking for a junior business analyst, do not use CBAP
No.
in there, because that implies a certain level of experience just by having that having that certification. So Claire,
and maybe what you put in there is willingness to obtain their CBAP. Great.
Yeah,
that would be neat for a junior person. I think they would find that attractive.
Yeah.
Okay.
Claire, were you going to add something to that?
No, I was just commenting on, well said, Kate, you didn't leave a whole lot of room for additional
I look at a lot of BA jobs, so I'm all over that.
I know that's your domain for sure. So great job.
And so continuing on with that theme,
Okay.
Average salaries for ranges for junior, intermediate, senior. If you don't know those, is there some place that you tend to send your clients to find that information?
Yeah, so we use, again, this is so broad. I don't even want to throw out something because it depends on where you live, what industry. I mean, there are so many things that go into that. Again, if you want to follow up with me offline, if you have a specific question, you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to do that. So we have an internal pricing guide that we share with our customers, and that's based on the data that we've collected from roles that we've worked on in the last X amount of years. But we also work with partners like Gartner, to come up with what is going on in the marketplace right now. So there's a lot of resources out there. I mean, you can even just Google business analysis salaries in Chicago, and generally speaking, it gives you a nice range. And then you can look at the job descriptions under each of those and see like, okay, is my stuff aligned or am I a little off here?
Yeah, and we've really been recruiting without borders, right? So I'm in Columbus, Ohio, and what I would have been sharing in terms of market insights or analytics to my customer 2-3 years ago is very, very different today, because we've got West Coast companies competing for East Coast talent, and it has inflated, I think, rates to a degree. I think hopefully that will start to normalize at some point. But it is important to audit it regularly, because just because you do, a rate case scenario this month, this time next year, it could be very, very different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a very, very good point. And candidates are aware of that as well, that they're interviewing for West Coast opportunities, and they're doing what we're asking managers to do. They're going and seeing what the average salary is, and that's what they're setting as their expectations. And again, it's a candidate's market. So like, if they're a good fit, you may find yourself giving someone a $20K increase just because they know what the average is in that city or area.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, excellent point. Yeah, I hadn't even considered that this, now that we're remote and everybody is, getting hired from someplace else, there is also that. And I guess the other takeaway here is, if you're a hiring manager, you're working with your recruiter for a reason, and things like, job description templates or salary ranges, that's the kind of expertise that you're getting in that relationship. So that's a great point.
Yeah, it's good to have a few key recruiting partners, because we all have a different portfolio. Again, you want folks that focus on your skill area, but, it really is good for obtaining that information on what's going on real time in the market.
Yeah. On that note of hiring across borders, Roxanne has a question. And really, this is even, for different countries. So when a job is 100% remote working, are we starting to see changes where we can accept candidates outside of the countries where we're hiring? And what are you seeing in the industry right now around that?
I still am seeing that they are contained within the borders. We've seen, we're across North America, and we also do support Europe as well. So I know Europe acts as their own entity. So we can't, if somebody's, even if they're available to work a European job, they can't, just because of regulations and whatnot. Now with Canada and the US, I have seen some instances there where that's been opened up. It's been advantageous. for, US companies to find Canadian talent, although it is very rare. Most folks are still staying with that borders. A lot of my customers, they're even struggling with, I love the opportunity to have, if you're a West Coast customer, for example, to have East Coast talent, but the time zone difference is really hard from a working perspective. So, there is still that, even though it is remote, there is still that consideration that that's going to be a tough schedule for that East Coast individual. And how are we going to make that work?
Yeah, there's a lot of legal, tax, insurance implications that make that very challenging. I will say, even to the point where, we can recruit anywhere in the US for the most part. Yes, we have time zone differences that we need to be mindful of, but I even have scenarios where I have resources that are saying, I'm going to travel out of the US. And, we work with a lot of financial services institutions, for example, that have, US sanction lists and other things that prevent even the travel opportunity. So I still think it's relatively contained to US based. Perhaps that will evolve in time, but I think the legal risk constraints there are still too significant to pursue that more broadly.
Yeah, I think typically if there are, I'm thinking like big companies, that are multinational, they probably have whatever those legal or tax agreements are so that they can hire. And usually they've got some entity based in whatever that country is. So,
and a lot of times folks will put in job postings that, we can only accept folks authorized to work in XYZ country, right? And that's a good indication. So if you don't see that, if there's a role out there that you're really interested in, you might as well pursue it and see. But a lot of times folks will put that nomenclature in there that identifies, you have to be live in this particular area.
Okay. All righty. So Layla has a question. How do you evaluate a candidate for soft skills and personal traits? So things like flexibility, adaptability, critical thinker. It might be easy to look at technical skills and evaluate them, but the soft skills, those are tough. What advice do you give?
I do think, again, the video interview is so important. How is this person coming across? What is their communication style, their eye contact, et cetera. I also think that you can ask a lot of open-ended questions, more situational questions. That's how I find a good way to evaluate some of those skills. The other things that you can do is either you can check references or have the recruiter or the HR team check references. Do they have recommendations on LinkedIn that talk about their personality or communication style? You could ask for an example of their work. There's a lot of things there, but again, I think those open-ended questions, tell me about a situation when you had to deal with a difficult stakeholder. What did you do? And see what they say. That's going to give you a good idea of how they handle conflict and, how they would rise to the occasion.
Yeah, and Cate, all of those things I was going to share too, but what I think that also demonstrates is a reliability check. So if you've asked for references and they don't get back to you, if you've asked for a work sample and you have to follow up 3 times, those types of things, I think we're vetting diligently on the front end to ensure that it's not a mismatch. But if you're not working with a third party and it's direct to your organization or HR, right, those are things to be mindful of. And if you're chasing people down for information or you're getting bad feedback from a reference, obviously there's a big red flag in there.
I'd agree more.
Yeah. Sometimes it's just as easy as how are they doing in the interview? Are they following up like you would expect them to do, or any of those things? It's So Sophia asked a question, and actually I think this was one of the first questions that came in. What is the ideal length of an interview process? Is there, I know you said don't make it onerous, but and you said maybe two interviews.
In a perfect world, it's one and done. Let's be honest. But one and done can mean, hey, there's 3 people on that interview, and that interview is maybe an hour. I had a customer who I talked to them last week, and they're like, well, we want to do 3 steps. So I was like, okay, well, let's talk about that. But what we agreed upon was we were going to do 3 steps, but in a row. So it was going to be 1 hour and a half interview, but with 3 different sets of folks. Again, I think it's really minimizing the time between those interviews. It's really frustrating when it's like, well, I meet with HR next week, then the following week I'm going to meet with the team, then I'm going to meet with, but wait, I got to talk to the CIO, and you're months into it. So, I think 1 to 2, and then as short of, if you can do that within a week, you're golden.
Yeah, we oftentimes want the decision maker at all times to be on that first interview, because sometimes it's just, he wants to get the gut feeling from his team. It's like, if you can include them in one interview and condense it to Kate's point, that would do as well. Or the very least, allowing Apex or any of the staffing firms that you may be working with to step in and help to monitor that interview process and take on some of that for you. And I think the other end is, though we want credibility from our clients, it also gives, companies like us credibility if on the front end we can tell candidates, hey, it's going to be a 3-step interview process, but this interview time will be Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday of this week. If we can let them know that ahead of time, maybe your chances increase of them going through that entire process if you can't condense it. But if we give them one interview and then, hey, sorry to let you know this, there's also a 2-hour interview tomorrow. And it's like, all right, now they're dealing with their schedule and now they're frustrated. And then this one and done client comes along and they sweep them right away from you. And then we're back to square one.
Yeah, managing the expectation is so critical. And if it changes, you're probably going to leave the candidate feeling like maybe they didn't say or do something quite right, and that it's evolving because you're trying to flesh out weaknesses or, other concerns. I would also say that, I always encourage my customers to be mindful of, you can set out whatever rigor you want for your interview process, whatever rigor or expectations you want for the suppliers to manage, rate controls and other things, but you are still competing with the marketplace. So where your set standard might be very extensive and exhaustive, understand that other customers might not be lending to the same philosophy. And if they don't have to interview 2 and 3 times with other, organizations, and they have a successful interview with someone else, they're likely not even going to be available by the time you reach your second or third timeline. So managing that expectation up front helps us try to mitigate and manage losing the candidate mid-cycle. And again, just being mindful of the marketplace is really setting the standard, not an individual organization.
Yeah, it's a good thing to remember that this is such a competitive market that you need to factor that into building out the very best process, because you are competing in the market. You're not just competing with Susan candidate. So this next question, so this is from Sophia. By the way, Sophia, you're asking fantastic questions today. She says, how do you balance the need to share information and cover all of the information that's in the job description versus the need to reduce the link to mobile optimize your advert? So I think the question is, how do you get all of what you want that person to do in something that is skimmable?
Yeah, I would think, avoid paragraphs, right? Bullet points and review for the fluff. Get rid of the fluff that isn't relevant, right? We all know what business analysts do, right? And we know what's important, the fundamentals of the role. So talk about what's different about your role. What makes it different? Is it the team? Is it the culture? Is it the benefits, the cool project they're working on? Like, those are the things that are usually missing. Again, I see a lot of business analysis job descriptions always like, I need somebody to come in and document this and gather requirements. It's like, okay, we all know that. Like, what else is there? And then focus on those attributes in a very condensed bullet point list.
Yeah, because one thing you may not think of is, in this day and age, people are looking at job descriptions on their mobile apps, on their phones, on LinkedIn. So can you imagine scrolling through paragraphs on your phone in traffic? I'm not even interested anymore, but if we can condense it to 3 bullet points, boom, 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 I see what they need. As soon as I get home, I'm calling that recruiter, I'm ready to interview for that job. So it's just little things that you may not think about that go a long way.
Yeah, I'm a big advocate of less is more, but I will say from search engine optimization standpoint, if there's a specific thing that is very, very important to you, embed it in the job description more than 5 times. And then people with that skill set will start to filter in your results.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Oh, yes. So remember your keywords. Yeah, that's a great tip.
Find ways to, pepper them in more than a couple of times, and it'll help you filter.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm so speaking as a job candidate in the past, I can remember getting job descriptions online, and when I printed them out, they would be 2 full pages. And that told me a lot about the company, that there was no way that they were asking me to do all of this, or they didn't take the time to customize that for this position. And so for you out there that may be candidates, I think that can be just a red flag for you. And then for managers and leaders, take that into account as well. If it's 2 pages, really, are you listing everything? It really,
Mm-hmm.
will they really do all of that? So, okay. We actually have more questions, but we have just another minute left, and I do want to wrap things up on time today. So just a quick reminder for everybody on the call, within 24 hours, you will get the link to the recording and the slide deck that you saw today. Members, you're going to get what we call the extras email. So you'll get some links to some things that you've got access to through your IIBA membership. And I think Sema's pulling that up now. So things like the competency model and the self-assessment can be great tools that you can use as you are thinking about job descriptions. We've also got some books. Heck, the Energy Bus, that's a new one. And we've got it. So you'll get the link to that as well. So just to wrap things up, Cate, Claire, and Pat, thank you guys today. I mean, you got a lot of hand clapping in chat, figuratively speaking today. We don't have our emojis on, but thanks you guys for joining us. Take
Thank
care,
you, everyone.
Thank you too.
Bye.
Take
Yeah.
care.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.